just always feel like I'm putting my friends in danger. The world needs the next Iron Man.
You going to step up or not?
Welcome to Explosion Network's Spider review discussion of Spider-Man Far From Home. My name's Dylan Blight, and joining me, Ashley Hobley.
Hey, Dylan, I'm excited to be here to talk about Peter and Ned's excellent adventure across Europe.
Is that what you think the title of this film should have been?
Should have been, yeah.
Should have been, yeah. It's a bit of a letdown. You can, of course, watch this at explosionnetwork.com or get it at youtube.com/explosionnetwork. Or if you'd rather just listen, you can find all of our review discussions on your Apple Podcasts, on your Spotify's, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, whatever else. Just search for Explosion Network or review discussions by Explosion Network and it will show up. So, in case you don't know what the words spoiler review discussion mean, they mean from the get-go, there's spoilers. There's no spoiler-free period. We're diving straight into it. So buckle your seatbelts, strap your spider webs, do what you need to do. So we're diving straight into it. Spider-Man Far From Home. Ash, what were your overall thoughts on the sequel to Homecoming?
The sequel to Homecoming and the direct sequel to Endgame.
Yes, it's in a weird...
Heavily.
It's got a lot riding on its shoulders, I guess.
It does. Yeah, it was a fun closing, I guess, to this chapter that they've. After watching the movie, I can see how they want to make this the end of that part of the Marvel universe. But overall, I thought it was a fun time. I don't think it was the best Marvel movie we've seen so far. I did enjoy a lot of the elements. I just think some of the humor didn't work, and I just wonder how much the emotional weight of the film is going to carry over in a few years after. Just that all of it was based around Tony Stark's recent death. Yeah. Is that going to still... Am I still going to care as much about that?
Yes.
In 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good point. I walked out and I was like, that was fine, I guess. I wasn't super excited or super down on it. Neither here or there. Although the more I thought about my time with the movie, there was a legit point about half an hour into the movie where I was like, "What are we doing? Where are we going?" It would have been a look at my watch moment kind of thing. I don't want to say I was super bored, but at the same time, I was like,
At what point was that?
It was before the big reveal, but it's still after the first fight. So it was after Mysterio first shows up. And does the fight for the water monster. So somewhere between then and maybe just after Spider-Man goes and meets with Nick Fury and all them. I feel like it was just because he goes for all that and then they get redirected and then they have the whole fight on the bus, which I felt was a really weird scene, to be honest. Where he calls down that drone to nearly kill that person.
No, it was a bit odd, but I know they were setting up the drones.
Yeah, they really wanted to set up those drones. They're like, these drones can shoot people. And here's where the drones come from. The drones come from Tony Stark's thing in the sky. But
yeah,
I just feel like it was a weirdly paced movie. And I feel like it was around that point where I was still just
that's a fair criticism. I think it was not paced perfectly.
Yeah, really weirdly placed. And it's around that point where I was like, I didn't know exactly where it was going. Now, I kind of predicted obviously where the movie was going because I know what the character's deal was probably going to be.
The Mysterio thing, yeah.
Yeah, I know the Mysterio thing.
To be fair, I was 50-50 as to whether they were going to
do it. Yeah,
do the twist. Because we've done,
yeah,
especially coming off Captain Marvel where
they changed the Skrulls.
Obviously,
yeah. And
then
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, but it was still a bad guy kind of, so.
Well, they changed yeah, I know. The point being they've changed villains, comic book origins and stuff before. So yeah, so you're going in, and I was too. I can't for sure 100% say when I went into the cinema, this is definitely what's going to happen because I don't know that. I haven't watched the movie. However, I'm going in knowing what the villains.
This is the history of that character.
The history of that character, and to the point where I was talking to my dad about the film a couple days before release, and he asked me something about Jack Gyllenhaal's character, and I was like, "Oh, he's playing he's one of the new characters in the movie." I cut myself off saying villain because I was like, "Is that not a spoiler, I suppose, if you don't expect him to be the villain. You know what I'm saying?
It is for people who aren't obviously don't know the comics.
Yeah, because I don't feel like the trailers painted him as the villain. I feel like if anything, the trailers were ambiguous with what he could be, but they weren't like he's the villain, he's the good guy. It's like they're painting him as a good guy in the trailers, but they were still like kind of ambiguous about like he's mysterious. Like who is this person? But they weren't like, oh, this is the bad guy of the movie. So yeah, I kind of cut myself off as I was saying that, I guess. But Jake Gyllenhaal, and we'll break down some of this other points here in a second. I'll say that it's definitely held up, this movie, I'd say, just by performances, I guess, more so than anything else. Like Jake Gyllenhaal's great. Everyone else, the returning cast is great. Nick Fury being in this with Spider-Man was cool to see. Like them having a bit more time. Happy getting more time was cool. Like all of that stuff is holding up the movie, but the bare basis plot and storyline was like meh-ish to me. It was really weirdly paced, and then I would say that once Mysterio gets his reveal, it kind of went like it just wasn't super interesting. He just became
there wasn't anywhere really for it to go. No, I guess.
Yeah, it just becomes typical bad guy bullshit.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed elements of how they went about it, I guess, but overall, it's like, oh, that's a bad guy. I guess that's where we're going for the rest of the film.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll ask you at the end of this where you kind of rank it, but let's break down some other points, and we'll dive into Mysterio first. So, as I was just talking about. Was talking about the twist. I feel like that's a main point. I was talking to the person I went and saw it with, Sam, one of my friends. He didn't know the twist. Like he didn't know the history of the comic book character, so it worked for him. So I'm basing my will this work for everyone solely on him because he does read comic books, but just didn't know this specific comic book character's origin story, and the twist did work for him. So if they pulled one over him, I'm going to say they're going to pull one over most people. Do you think the twist will work for most people?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think they did a really good job of like building him up as the next Iron Man, as they keep saying in the film. But
yeah,
and I think the reveal was cool, even if you did know the history. I think it was at a point where it was cool for them to show it and how they did it. Like in that bar, just sort of. All the holographic stuff in the film was pretty cool.
It does look pretty cool. My only problem with like the him as the villain and the main thing with the twist and all this sort of stuff is it makes Peter Parker, I guess, like dumb in this movie to a degree. Like I guess they're like playing. You're like, oh, but they try and explain like he's playing off his emotions and he doesn't feel like he's living up to like. He's getting a lot of pressure from the start of the movie pushed on him.
He got introduced to him by Nick Fury.
Yeah, I know, but
the most suspicious person on the planet. So you would have thought you would have been pretty trusting out the gate.
I know, but it's not even just that. It's just handing over that degree of power to anyone you've known for like 2 minutes, basically.
That's fair.
Is that it's nothing to do with any other thing. Just boiling it down to that one thing. You basically handed over potentially one of the most powerful objects in the world, I guess, to a random. And it's like, I know you're getting along with the dude. I get that, but you've literally known each other for a couple of days. That makes you, and like the whole thing about like they tried in this film to push that Peter's a lot smarter and like have him say some science stuff, and then like 10 minutes later he does that. I'm like, Peter's still a bit dumb because
he's smart. He's just not, street smart.
Street smart. Well, yeah. I mean, he's supposed to be protecting the twist. What did you think of his whole thing? So, Mysterio, it's like he's what'd you put it? He was shut down by Tony Stark. He invented this.
He invented the hologram thing that we saw in Avengers Ultron. Was that?
Yes. Well,
yeah.
Or was it Civil War at the start?
Civil War, that's right.
I think it was
at the beginning of Civil War.
Yeah, so they retcon that and they have him in the background. And then one of the cool things about that whole reveal scene is he reveals that, and I'm like, that's cool. I like this. And then they go over a bunch of other people, and everyone that's working for him are all Tony Stark.
I like that he's got a team as well.
Yeah, I've pissed off him.
Whereas in the comics, obviously, he's working by himself.
Yeah, he's working
Like,
by himself.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah.
Not for this. I suppose this is a more realistic, as far as you can go, realistic take on the character by having it combined a bunch of tech and these sorts of things. But yeah, I like that, and I like how they're all getting together to work through him. What do you think of Jake Gyllenhaal as a whole?
I thought he was super charming, especially in that first half of the film. He was just like, you couldn't help but like him, especially when he was joking with Peter and that sort of thing. But then when he turns, it was just as good. It was, obviously the dialogue and everything was really good. So
he plays both sides of the coin well.
Both sides of the coin perfectly, yeah.
And he's played both sorts of characters in movies before, so it's like he's played villainous characters and he's played psycho characters and, you know, however you want to word it, and nice guy characters. So it's like a combination of all things. So another thing with this movie is we finally get to build on, obviously, the MJ relationship and these sorts of things.
That kind of felt out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Especially because we spent the entire last film with him trying to get with Liz.
I was like, what was her name? I couldn't even remember, but yeah.
Yeah. And then first thing we see is he's trying to get with MJ at the start of this movie.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we see. We don't see him talk about, the blip. It's like, all that's explained, but yeah, he not reflecting on the last 5 years or anything. It's just, I want to get with MJ. Mm-hmm. This person who was kind of my friend in the last film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really rush. It's funny though, because like it was one of the big reveals for the first film with her, you know, like, oh, that's her name. It's like MJ. And it's like, oh, and everyone MJ. And remember the whole internet flipped out. They're like, MJ.
Unless they didn't quite get the timeline right. Like explaining how long they've been in school since long after the blip, I guess.
It seems like a couple months? No, the halfway through school term, they explained they had to restart.
And then they said they'd have to start the whole year again.
So at most, it's like 9-ish, somewhere between 9 to 12 months after Endgame, possibly. If you want to put it like a full school.
So I guess that explains it, but still, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, but kinda, I guess, but it's not like we've seen that. We haven't seen him build for his interest for her, and then this film's like introduces him. Like one of the first scenes of the movie is just him being like this whole plan to get with her. It's like super, like he's really into it. It's not like
in depth.
I somewhat feel like I would have preferred their like relationship in this movie to have actually just been built in front of us now. Like you could have started the movie with him being like, I'm kind of into MJ, but not like super. I'm into MJ like hardcore, and then as the film builds up, he gets more and more interested in her. You know, like he sees her do stuff, or she talks about stuff, and he's like, "She's funny," or like, "I like your dark sense of humor." You know, like get into her throughout the film, so we actually get to experience that, I guess, because as the movie's going, and it's like, oh, she's really into all these dark things, I guess, you know, like broken, weird nonsense and sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm like
conspiracy theories
and stuff. I don't see. I'm like, is Peter into this too? Like, where's the line on where he's like, oh yeah, I love that about MJ. I love how she's into conspiracy theories. It's like one of my favorite pastimes, being into conspiracy theories. So, but what do you think of their overall romance? I guess, like by the time you get to the end of the movie, you see them get together.
Yeah, it worked
they're a
well.
couple.
Obviously they were like super awkward, which makes it just super awkward. But I thought it worked well. It was very charming. You know, they seem like a nice couple.
Yeah, I neither love it or hate it, I guess is where I'm at. Like,
okay,
that's what I'm saying. And I think that is in part just because of my problems with how rushed it kind of felt. So by the time we get to the end, I still feel like it's sort of rushed, but like I buy it. Like they have good chemistry together, and it's fine. I really like Zendaya as that character, and even though it wasn't, I wouldn't say like her role in this movie was heavily as like girl in distressed version of MJ. It definitely wasn't that, but at the same time, I really enjoyed her in the first film, just being that character. And although she continues that into this film, obviously her role in this movie is a lot more as the love interest, more as the just the random weirdo that was
just
in
the
class.
person who shows up and makes one-liners and stuff. Yeah,
which I quite enjoyed, because when the first time you're watching that movie, you're just like, this is a funny character. I quite like. You know, like I like this character. It's quite good. And then in this one, it's like, well, okay, that's a love interest now. That's what we're dealing with. How'd you feel about Ned's holiday fleet?
That was great. I mean, I mean, it's smart. Obviously, Angourie Rice, who plays Betty Brant, is kind of a great actress, and they obviously decided to utilize her more in this one. So I enjoyed it throughout the entire film, mainly because of just the ridiculousness of
it was quite funny. I like how they literally start it when they get there on the plane, and then on the way back, when they arrive back, it's just like, oh, we broke up. It's like, we're adults. We're people move on. Like, yeah, I thought that
we're going to be friends though.
Yeah, they're going to be friends. I thought that was quite funny. Both of them were good in this movie. Obviously, I don't feel like Ned has like as much to do because like the first film was
he was
like,
the guy in the chair.
Yeah,
he was,
the
like,
chair and the
confidant.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. This film's just more of like his comedic relief, kind of, I guess, more so than
a little bit, yeah.
Just friend in need sort of stuff. But okay, so next thing I want to talk about is the more, as we said at the start of this, it's the sequel to Homecoming. It was also the epilogue to the Infinity Saga, is what they call it these days. They officially said this is the last film. We all thought it was going to be Endgame. It's not. They said Spider-Man is the last film in the Infinity Saga. So on that, do you feel weird with this being the finale, especially given like obviously Endgame ends, happy/sad note, no after credit sequences, bam. Because I much preferred that as the ending compared to this mediocre movie. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this is a in the middle. If I'm ranking it, it's going in the middle. You know, you want me to rank the MCU movies? This one's going somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So this is where we're going. Endgame would be above this. So if this is capping off the saga now, and it's also capping it off with a film that has 2 Endgame after credit sequences, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But I kind of just preferred the more no teasers of what's coming, all that sort of stuff as the finale. But how do you feel?
I feel like it sort of explained what the world was like after Endgame. It sort of explained a bit more of what happened in that 5 years. They showed the scene, obviously the start of the movie, which I thought was hilarious, and which was
the new
the
school
in memoriam.
Thing. That worked really well. I felt as a like. Yeah. Although, pause for a second.
These guys died. It's funny.
Let me read you verbatim because you just reminded me. Let me read you verbatim the text message I received from my friend Sam at some point today. 10:39 a.m. this morning, he messages me. Yeah. Just thinking, with the blip, everyone appeared where they disappeared. ... Does that mean all the people who were on planes or boats fell to their death or drowned? ...
Yep.
Hulk is technically a mass murderer. Shrug. And then I said, I suppose they could try and get around it by saying they blipped back inside the plane, but then the plane crashes from being oversized, maybe. And yeah, so
the plane would have to.
What's your thoughts on that? Because in this,
there is absolutely going to be no explanation for any of these things.
No, but I feel like they would have been better off not giving some sort of explanation because they offer that one scene at the start where they show everyone.
Maybe just everybody was on the grounds. He just clicked them, made sure they were in a safe place.
Because I was like, the second I never thought about it, I'm like, they made a choice, and the choice was to show people blipping back in like pretty much the second after they disappeared, where they was, what they were doing.
Really, it was a great gag.
It was a good gag.
The marching band just popped in.
It's a good gag, but it opens up a lot of problems. I'm willing to just let it pass. It's not that important.
But yeah, they also touch on other things. Obviously, May Parker is working for a fundraising place that is
for orphan kids or whatever it was, wasn't it?
No, for people who have been affected by the blip.
Okay,
because obviously they're the places they were renting and stuff were given away while they were because they were disappeared.
But this is my thing, and this is what I was talking about when I was talking about Infinity War. And yes, they did tick a box because I remember when I was talking about Infinity War. I said I hope Endgame offers me some details and actually shows you what the world is like before they fix it, and they do that, and I like that. But every time they give us a little bit of information like this, I'm like, that is really interesting to me, and I really wish that one of the Disney Plus shows was just a like civil level, just showing you what that time period was like for people and what they were dealing with, which is basically the leftovers, as I bring up all the fucking time, is basically leftovers. But it's just a cool period of time. And I'm like, they just keep teasing us, and they're going to move on very soon to the next phase or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, it could have been cooler, could have been more interesting, but yeah. Oh well.
But yeah, just having Peter deal with, pretty much Tony Stark dying throughout the film, I felt was a nice way to end the saga. Obviously, with Tony starting this thing and him being at the end of it as well.
I do feel like
and especially with him making the suit as well in the plane, which was very reminiscent of Tony making the suit at the start of the film.
I do feel like this film definitely works better if you think of it as an epilogue, not as like the final chapter.
No, it's not the final. Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're looking at it
as
as
a book, it's not the end of the climax.
Yeah.
It's just the wrap up.
If you're just thinking of it as like chapters of a book, and each film was a chapter of a novel called the Infinity Saga, then Endgame was chapter 22 or whatever, and this is epilogue Far From Home.
Sure. Whatever makes you happy.
That makes me happy. That's what works for me. So one thing that stood out to me, like thematically from this film that I quite enjoy, and I'm gonna take and hold on to for the next couple of years and bring up probably a lot as we talk about upcoming films and stuff like that, is I think that the trilogy of these Spider-Man movies, especially if the director returns, who I should have said his name at the start of it, was it John Watts, right? John Watts. I presume he'll probably return, and hope if he does a third one, it's the same sort of team. I think the third one will still involve Tony Stark, and that's because I think the trilogy of Spider-Man movies are kind of a sins of your father type thing, with the father being Tony Stark. And you may be like, well, he's not his father. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like figurative father, like his superhero father, I guess, is the way I'm putting it. Because the first film obviously has Peter having to deal with these goons that are all pissed off because Tony Stark put them out of jobs and all this sort of stuff. So when you think about it, and then this film obviously has him dealing with a bunch of people, once again, that were all pissed off because of Tony Stark. So both films involve Spider-Man having to deal with Tony Stark's shit. Like, it's his fault, really. Even in death, this film is still, he's left behind enemies still. So what do you think about that? Because that's what I'm going to hold on to and be like, the third film is still going to involve Tony Stark. It'll be a trilogy of these movies.
I don't think so. I feel like just because of what happened in the end credits, I don't think.
You don't think so?
That's what's going to carry over to the next film.
You don't reckon they could do
even though it is super reminiscent again of the first.
Yeah, but you reckon they could do like a Sinister Six, like villain team up of all these pissed off Tony Stark?
Well, let's talk about this end credits and then we'll get into it.
Okay, we'll talk about the end credits then. So the end credits, which I'll say
second last.
Hey,
we'll do the end credits
and then come back to the big one. All right, so I was about to say, because the first end credits thing,
the mid credits.
The mid credits, I think that should have actually just been the end of the movie, personally, but we'll come back to that one in a sec. So I mean, technically, it could have been the end of the movie. They just had the title cards in front. Yeah, I know. I just feel like it would. It's semantics anyway. But the final thing with the scrolls, I thought that was funny. I very much like it because it confirms that, to me, it confirms that the scrolls are going to be a big part of the MCU going forward. I thought it was going to be a bigger, like, holy shit, they're going to do Secret Invasion, but no, it was kind of that doesn't mean that they couldn't be teasing it. Just because you have a couple good scrolls doesn't mean that Secret Invasion still couldn't happen. Is all I'm going to say. For the rest of history, for the next however many years, anytime someone's going to, that's going to be my answer. Anytime someone's like, yeah, but they're good guys, I'm like, yeah, but they're not, they don't all have to be good. You know, I still reckon that we could do Secret Invasion with some bad eggs among the whole thing. I got Ben Mendelsohn back. One of the best. So good. I love it. And just seeing him back in that small role just made me go, yes, I do need more Ben Mendelsohn as whatever that character's name is, the scroll person. Talos or whatever it is. Yeah. Yes, I do need more of this. And then when you look back at the whole movie, it kind of explains, and I would have put it as a negative. I would have put negative. Nick Fury is dumb as fuck in this movie. Would have been one of my big negatives of this movie. As I'm watching it, I'm like, Nick Fury came back from the blip fucking dumb. But then you get to that end credits thing.
Well, he does explain that it's been 5 years. He doesn't know anything after 5 years.
I still reckon I would have put it as a negative if it wasn't for this explanation. Because then this explains why they were stupid to me. And I'm like, okay, well, Sure.
Yeah.
Nick Fury came back from a blip and he was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
So, good for him. Do we need to do? I still want to know what exact spaceship he was on and where exactly he was. I don't know. Do you,
it must have been the Skrull spaceship, wherever
could
they are.
It could have been different.
Captain Marvel took him for a trip.
Yeah, maybe. I guess it also confirms that either Captain Marvel or like Nick Fury himself has a straight dial to the Skrulls, I guess, somewhere and whatever else.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder though then about that character. Like, why would you leave and come do this job? Is it because you just owe Nick Fury a favor?
Do him a favor, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Captain Marvel favor.
Yeah. I quite enjoyed it though. I thought it was
good.
It was good fun. It was good fun.
Good fun.
Good fun. All right. So the big one, of course.
Although, why didn't you just go to a proper beach? I don't know. Yeah.
Space is fun, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So the big one, of course, the way it ends, Spider-Man gets his identity revealed to the world by the leaked video from Mysterio.
Yeah.
But also,
they recut the ending. Yeah.
I'd say the biggest thing is now, if I was interviewing anyone from that's involved in this movie post-launch or the director or anything, my biggest question is going to be like, how the fuck do you get J. Jonah Jameson,
J.K.
Simmons back, considering is now people are going to be losing their mind a little bit. I feel like when they watch this movie because they're going to be like, yeah, but he was in the old ones and he's playing the same character.
Who cares?
No, I don't care, obviously, but I find it quite funny that he did that and then DC hired him to play fucking Commissioner Gordon, and everyone was like, oh yeah, he's like switching sides, he's coming over to DC now, and then DC fucking burnt everything on fire and like blew up their own studio and whatever the fuck else that no one knows what they're doing. J.K. Simmons was like, you know what? I should have just stuck to playing J. Jonah Jameson and I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, why not?
I'm playing it. Yeah. Why not?
Such a good.
He's born to play the role.
Yeah, it's a perfect casting. I mean, anybody else would have been compared to him, like negatively. I think so. Just to bring him back, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I was so happy. Yeah.
I quite enjoyed it. That was my favorite part.
I mean, it's just another example of like it doesn't matter if it's being rebooted. They brought M back they brought Dame Judi Dench back when they rebooted James Bond. They're bringing James Earl Jones back for the new Lion King. J.K. Simmons needs to play J. Jonah Jameson. Simple as that.
It's simple as that. What do you think about the other thing in there, I guess? So Spider-Man gets his whole identity revealed to the world. In my mind, that's obviously going to be the plot of the next movie, Spider-Man movie. But yeah. I still just think it's going to be a thing of like, well, if they can prove that the video was doctored, then he can easily just explain that the video was doctored. That means that's bullshit, which means what he said was also bullshit. And then the whole world will be like, oh, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. You know, I
don't think it's going to happen.
Do you think they're actually just going to
maybe that's a goal, but I don't know how realistic.
Do you think he's going to have his identity out in the public then?
I think so at least for the next film.
Well, how do they fix it? How do they bring it back?
I don't know how they fix it. They tried to fix it in the comics, and that didn't go well. That wasn't a very well received storyline. Yeah, but I'm keen. I reckon this definitely Sinister Six is what we're going to see in the next film.
Yeah. Sometimes it's Sinister Six.
Yeah, just obviously we knew after the last film, Scorpion and obviously Vulture knew his identity, but Scorpion was trying to.
Did Scorpion know? I thought Vulture only knew it.
No, only Vulture did, but Scorpion was asking.
Yeah, and he wouldn't tell him. Yeah.
And was wanting revenge. So I suspect, they'll put a team together. And now he's going to be like the full-on menace that the Daily Bugle has been pushing him for throughout history.
Yeah.
He's not going to be looked in a positive light in the comics.
Well,
in the movies.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting movie. We're going to say that by the end of the movie, he'll have his identity.
Everything will work out.
They could even do some Green Arrow, like Arrow TV show thing where they get someone else to dress up as Spider-Man and fucking Peter Parker's walking down the street and Spider-Man's there. So it's obviously not him kind of thing, like. That's
the thing with the comics recently. I think they got the Prowler.
To play him or something?
The Prowler to play him, which coincidentally is played by Donald Glover in the MCU.
In the MCU, yeah. So, well, I mean, they did introduce him, but I don't know if they'll ever do anything with him. I kind of hope that, if the next movie, by God, and please do it because it would make me real happy. But let's say they did introduce, any Spider-Man actually. Let's just say they introduced any Spider person other than Spider-Man. Could even be Gwen. Could even be fucking MJ gets bitten by a spider or something. You know what I mean? I kind of hope that they go that route. And then that person could play Spider-Man while Peter's walking down the street. I kind of hope that they introduce one more spider person though. Because if anything, Into the Spider-Verse prove that people can manage to deal with the idea of several spider people.
Well, I reckon Sony would very much like to introduce another Spider-Man within this or Spider Person within this franchise, and then for their sake. But I don't know how much Marvel want to have another Spider-Man running around yet. Although who knows what they're going to do in the next.
You might not see this movie for 4 years.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. When was the last one?
2 years ago, roughly.
It would have been only like 2-3 years.
They really rushed this one out, but that doesn't mean that they're going to rush out the next one. Yeah. So don't know. We'll have to see.
I know. Yeah.
What are your final thoughts then? Wrapping up here, any other tidbits you wanted to call out? Or
I enjoyed it overall. I think that holographic scene in Berlin, I thought that was incredible. Like cutting with these different suits and everything. I thought that was the best use of the holograms in the entire film. My favorite stuff in the whole movie is all of the Mysterio fucking with him stuff, because it really made me think about Scarecrow from Batman, like especially like the Arkham Knight games or something. Yeah, obviously that was a big touching point, I think. Or even he got poisoned in the video game. It was very reminiscent of that level.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, with what's his? I can't remember the character name, but yeah,
I think it was Scorpion. Probably got poisoned. Yeah. But yeah, I love that sequence and just how they utilize Mysterio's powers. I think he's also always been kind of a joke, obviously, because of the fishbowl head thing.
He's a joke villain. Yeah. It's like Aquaman. People joke about him. But
I think they made him a rival to Spider-Man in the film. And the other thing is, I don't know if all the humor hit through the entire film. I think Martin Starr and JB Smoove at times felt like they were just...
Oh, I really didn't like either of those.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know I'm not supposed to like them because they're like bullies or whatever, but like forcing in they're like, he used to be a kid, now it's 5 years later, but he didn't get blips, and now he's in our grade. I'm like, all that sort of stuff is funny, I guess, like for a thing. But then it's like, then you have to, and here's this, and then the character comes in here and to build upon the romance stuff, we got to have the other guy like trying to steal the girl, and that's like what they spend a lot of this movie focusing on. Like even that plane ride scene, like playing on that and the jokes in there with like move on the seats and all that stuff. I'm like, just felt like it went too long and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, it's not as funny to me as maybe,
I enjoyed some of it, but
maybe it's not as funny to me as you thought it was when you were writing it or recording it or what have you. But yeah, I mean, overall, I like the movie, but I feel like I like it more because the actors
because you like Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
I like Tom Holland. I like all these people. They're enjoyable. But I feel like if it didn't have those strong people leading these roles, and he was relying a bit more on a well put together story and villain and stuff, it would probably be like a sinking ship. Jake Gyllenhaal is really cool, but the Mysterio villain, once he gets revealed, he just is I want to fucking rule the world. Well, not quite rule the world, but it's just like
he wants to be. Yeah,
it wasn't.
He wants to be somebody.
It wasn't as nuanced as Vulture. I feel like is the other thing. I went from Vulture in the first movie, which I would actually say is one of easily top 3 villains of the whole MCU. Vulture for me personally. He's somebody who has a reason what he's doing, and he goes too far, of course, by the end of it. But for a lot of that movie, it was easy to sympathize with him and why he's doing what he's doing, or like why he started doing what he's doing to a degree. Obviously, he goes too far overboard and then becomes a villain, and that's like the whole thing. But he was an interesting villain because he actually had he wasn't trying to rule the world. He was just trying to
it was a small thing.
Small thing. At the start, he was just trying to make enough money to look after his family and all these sorts of things. So he was an interesting villain, especially compared to most MCU villains, which are boring. To be honest, like to me, it's just like rule the world, blow up shit, do what you need to do. And as cool as Jake Gyllenhaal was in this role, and it was fun to see a silly cartoon villain like Mysterio. After the reveal, I was like, yeah, whatever. All the stuff to do with Iron Man, I did like though. So like, I like the themes they were playing with. I just feel like maybe they didn't pull it off as well as they could have. I guess
yeah.
Happy stuff was good. There's a scene on the plane where they really connect and like get emotional, and that was cool. So.
Him and Aunt May.
Him and Aunt May are a thing, maybe aren't a thing, maybe are a thing. You know, we could work on it, we could talk about it. Maybe we're a thing, maybe we're not. Don't know what's going on here. That's cool.
Know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Overall, it's fine. It's fine. It's a fine movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd see it again.
You'd see it again. I mean, yeah, I'll watch it again when it comes out on Blu-ray, but I feel like I'd watch all of them when they come out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's true.
So that doesn't particularly say too much, I guess. Yeah, cool. Wrapping up. So thank you for joining us for this review discussion, of course. Make sure you give the video a like if you're watching at youtube.com/Explosion Network or on the website, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, VIVALADIL. You can follow Ashley on Twitter at Ashley Hobley, SHLEYHOBLEY. And you can follow Explosion Network at Explosion Pod, and check out explosionnetwork.com for all our news, reviews, videos, podcasts, including What Do You Want to Watch, which is our movies, TV, and media podcast, which you'll find on all podcasting services. And if there's one where it doesn't exist, you can tweet at me and I'll figure out how it gets on there. If you have any thoughts about anything we've talked about today, drop them in the comments below. Like, do you think Spider-Man really is going to have his identity left open to the public in the MCU going forward, or are they going to solve that? You know,
did Janice ever get that cape?
Did Janice? Or you can tweet your thoughts at us as well, of course. And thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.